ahead and get started. I get the honor of actually introducing Tim. Tim may not remember, but we were part of a coaching group here a while back, and I got the honor of sitting and talking to Tim for about an hour poolside. And guys, I walked away from that. I called my friend Lauren Vassar and I said, this guy is probably one of the best realtors I've ever seen. He is extremely personable and the man knows his stuff. I really hope one day we can get him out coaching with us. So Tim, you showed up at a summit funding retreat a year ago, correct?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I got to see Tim on stage and he was just as impressive then. And Tim, we are so honored that you agreed to do our lunch and learn today. Tim's been a lifelong resident of Eugene and Springfield there in Oregon. He's been doing real estate since 2014. But guys, here's the best part of the introduction, and I'm going to let Tim explain this because I've never heard anything like it. Tim's goal is to go beyond transactions, and he aims to elevate. His goal, believe it or not, is to be one of the most expensive options that his real estate clients find. So, Tim, I definitely want you to explain that. Guys, any questions during this lunch and learn, please put them in the chat screen. Tim's going to go for about a half hour, 40 minutes, and then we will definitely have time for questions and answers. Without further ado, Tim, Duncan, they're all yours.
All right. Well, thank you, Jonas. I do remember that poolside chat, and it was a blast to speak at the summit retreat last year. So in preparation for this, Jimmy challenged me. He was interviewing me and asking me what makes me different about representing buyers. And we were talking about the NAR settlement and like how that's going to change things. And I told him I just wasn't. I was like, it is what it is. It's going to be what it's going to be. And like some people are going to elevate and some people are going to drop off. And he said, well, why aren't you scared of it? I said, I don't know, like change happens and you have to adapt. And so he encouraged me to dive into that and find out like what happened, or like what experience did I have in my life that led me to not be worried about that. And the story that comes to mind is I've been a real estate agent for 10 years. And before I was a real estate agent, I sold cell phones at Verizon Wireless. And I loved what I did, but I hated the company that I did it for and the people that I did it with. Mainly the boss that I had at the time. Some of you, I don't know if anybody knows him, so I won't mention his name. But I was the #1 sales rep for the Pacific Northwest of Verizon Wireless in this store in Eugene. And I remember going into the back of my office and like I had just sold a new customer like 10 new lines, and new lines were the big deal. Well, he told me that I wasn't good enough. Like I'm not joking. Like he literally said, like, you're not good enough, you don't sell enough, you need to sell more X, Y, and Z. And I was just like, man, like I'm defeated. And so then I kind of transitioned. I got married. I had a baby. We had just bought a house, our first house. And I remember going home from work one day and I told my wife, I can't go back. And that's a scary place to be. And so my mom had been in real estate for a long time. And I went in the next day and I said, hey, I'm putting in my notice. I just got my real estate license. And he said, you're going to be a failure. You're going to regret this decision. You're going to suck. Like, you're not going to succeed. And I think that's why, like, I've got this guy, total jerk of a boss, that told me I wouldn't succeed. And so I knew I had to overcome it. And I knew like that was my passion, is like, I'm not going to let this guy be right about like who I am and like what I'm doing. And so I think that's kind of like, this is kind of the same thing, like the public and like all the social media and these lawsuits and like the media is telling you that you're not worth it, that our industry isn't valued, we get paid too much money, we don't do enough work. When in reality, all of us know that we work harder than anybody else does at their jobs, and we're looking out for their best interest, their most expensive investment. So my goal is to prove to customers that I'm worth every penny that I charge, and they can go hire the discount realtor if they want, but there's a difference in value and service between what we offer and what they offer. And as such, there's a difference in cost. So to Jonas's point, where he said, my goal is to be the most expensive option. I think there's two options that people have. The two options that people have, they can either add value and charge the same rate that they've been getting, or in my experience, I can actually charge more than I've been getting paid before this NAR lawsuit. Or they can do the same thing that they've been doing, and they can negotiate their commission, and everybody will race down to zero. until they get out of the business. There's not a right answer, I don't think, but there's a right answer for you. So every single person has to decide, do you want to stick to your fee, offer more in value and service so you can charge more? Or do you want the easy road and the less lucrative road and reduce your rate? So that's kind of my story. That's who I am. That's what drives me. And so with that, I'm going to get you started. There's 3 things that I want you guys to learn today, and I hope to teach you. The first thing is I want to teach you how to structure, or at least how I have structured an offer so good that my clients sign it every time. I'm going to teach you how to get them to sign on the spot, like when you're having that consult, when you're first meeting with them. And then I want to teach you how to defend your money, how to charge a higher rate without really increasing your expenses, which it is. I know it sounds crazy, but it is possible. All right, so the first thing I want to tell you is I couldn't do this without these teammates here. This is my team. And the reason I show you this is because I show every customer this, even if they're not a buyer or they're not a seller, it doesn't matter. I show them all that because I want them to know they're not working with one person. They're working with a team of 5 people and, soon to be more, that kind of thing. So Jesse is a buyer's agent. Shyla is my listing partner. Teresa is my assistant. And then Austin is my marketing director. If you guys do not have someone on your team in a marketing department, you have to hire somebody. Austin is unbelievable, and he's changed the game for me. He's the reason I'm going to level up this year. And without having somebody that understands marketing and advertising, I don't think I'd be able to do it. Okay, this is incredible. I learned this from Todd Screama, the class that he just did on how to make an offer so good that you can't refuse. Well, he gets that from Alex Hormozi on this $100 million offers. And truthfully, I'm only halfway through this book, and I had to stop because there was so much stuff that I already needed to implement. I wanted to work on implementing that, and then I'm going to go back and finish it. But there's 8 real principles so far that I've seen in his book, and he outlines them very clearly. But it's value creation, offer structuring, customer psychology, pricing strategies, risk reversal, which that one's really cool. And I don't have that in my presentation, but I'm going to talk about that. Testimonials and proof of success or social proof, scaling your offers, and then implementing. So since I don't have this in there, if I forget to mention it, Jonas or somebody just put in the remarks asking about risk reversal, because that gets really, really exciting on what you can do with that. All right. So we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I think you have to decide which way you want to go. Like, do you want to be the guy that gets paid in this buyer scenario? Like, I want to be the guy that's getting paid 3% on every buyer, even if the seller's not offering a fee. I want to be the guy that's at 3% no matter what, without fail. I don't want to get into the game of being like, okay, this guy wants a discount, so okay, I guess I'll do it for 2.5. And then I resent that client the whole time I'm working with them because I don't feel like I'm being valued. I'd rather charge 3% and work with the people that are able and willing to pay that than get into the game of like valuing people and what somebody's worth and not giving someone a discount just because they didn't ask for it. But there really is not a right answer for everybody. You have to decide which way is right and best for your business. All right, so this is something that I've struggled with a long time, and it's taken me a while to figure out what is value, because everybody always thinks like value is giving somebody more than what you take in return or what you take in payment. I think that is true, but I think the way that customers see value is differently. I think customers see value as emotional triggers. So you don't have to give somebody gas money in order to be valuable. You need to give them directions. Like, it doesn't cost anything. So for example, like an emotional trigger would be like, make the process safer for your client so they don't lose money. You reduce risk, you add value. Like if they work with you, if they're interviewing 2 agents and you're offering to reimburse them for their inspection cost if the transaction doesn't close because of that, and the other agent just says they're going to reduce their rate, this is more valuable, but you're not spending any money. So like, it's just making those guarantees. It can really, really sway you. So like the emotional triggers that I've come up with are safety, things that make people feel safer. They give my customers peace of mind. They provide security. They save them time, and they lower their expenses. So we'll get into more of that here when we get going. So guys, this is one thing. When I started doing this, my level, I don't have any statistics, but the number of people I would sign convert, like probably went up 20 or 30%. This form, it's just a Google form. You go to forms.google.com, you can customize these and make them whatever questions you want. There are really only two questions, other than just getting their basic contact information. There are two really powerful questions in this. The first question is, how soon are you looking to buy or sell a house? And the second question is, what are you looking for in a real estate agent? I'll tell you that second question, I require that this form is filled out, by the way, before I do a buyer consultation or a seller consultation, because I need to know from the client what they're looking for me to be so that I can emulate that and be who they want, and that will make them more comfortable. So for example, we just had a client that came in and did a buyer consult. She wants to buy and sell, so we kind of did both of them. She filled this out on the what are you looking for in a real estate agent. The most important thing that she said was a kind human being. So I thought, she's not looking for me to be pushy. She's not looking for me to close the deal. She's not looking for, all these other things that I might think she wants. She just wants someone to be kind and like represent her well. And so I went into that meeting in a different headspace than I would have if I thought, man, I've got to win this appointment. It makes it easier to sell. Some people say, I want the truth. I don't want any BS. I want really good communication, but it tells you what you and your team need to do in order to impress this client. Because at the end of the day, you don't just want to sell them a house. You want a 5-star review on Google, and you want referrals. And in order to get that 5-star review and the referrals, you have to know what the bullseye is. And so instead of throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping you hit the middle, let's make that bullseye really big. So when we throw it, it doesn't matter where it hits, we're hitting the bullseye because we know what the target is. So, and I can give any of you guys, if you give Jonas your contact, or I'll put my contact at the end of this presentation, I'll put it in the comments. So you guys can reach out to me. And I'm going to be a completely open book here. I'm going to pull the curtain back because I want to help you guys understand the success that I've had. And I think that this NAR lawsuit is going to be better for those that adapt than it was before. So I'm going to keep going, but I'll give you some examples at the end. Okay. So in a previous coaching company that I was in, that Jonas was in, it was really hammered into us. You have to do a really professional office presentation every single time. I'll tell you, like, I've become more lax on that. And I've decided just through like what's natural, like if I feel like I need to do a listing presentation or a buyer presentation, I'm going to do one. But if I know the person or they're a past client, I think it's almost like an insult to do that if you know them really well. So I'm like hit or miss on whether or not I do an actual like buyer presentation with them. However, I do talk about everything every time. Sometimes it's just more of a conversation. And sometimes it happens at the house that we're looking at. Sometimes it happens at their house, and sometimes it happens here. So I would tell you, like, if you have any pressure about like you have to do this really formal, wearing a suit presentation in your office, you really don't. Just play it by ear. And like, if I don't know the person or I don't know what they're looking for, I will do it more often than not. But if I know the person and I have a relationship and I feel good about them, especially if I've sold something to them, I may not do that with them. I might just have a casual conversation, because that's really what they want. They want to connect and trust you. They don't necessarily want to know that you're the best real estate agent there is. They just want to know and trust you. Okay, so this is an important one. So talking about like meeting with buyers, I prefer to meet them at my office, but I'll go wherever is convenient because I don't want to lose the client. And why do I care if I sign them up at their house or if I sign them up at my office? Our default is my office, but if they can't meet, that's fine. I start, like, I think that I used to start with like doing the buyer presentation first, but I realized that that's not really speaking to them and it doesn't disarm them. So I've started just having a conversation with them. Like, why do they want to buy a house? What does it mean to them? What are they looking for? Getting to know them personally so that they're discarded. So when we get to this and I'm telling them how much I charge, they're more likely to accept it because they're comfortable, their guard's down, they're relaxed. So we do the conversation, then I set up an MLS search, whether or not they're approved for a loan. So this is oftentimes before they've even talked to Lauren at Summit. They're oftentimes setting up an MLS search with me based on what we think they can afford. I want to get them emotionally invested. I want them to see houses that they like. I want them to get excited. They can't do that if I'm not sending them houses. And they're going to look on Zillow anyways. So I might as well be the source of information that they're getting, then allowing them to find it on their own. And then we go over the buyer presentation, either just, like I said, based on conversation, or like a real formal one, just depending on what I feel and how I think that what needs to happen. Okay, so now we're gonna kind of get into like the services and benefits that I offer in order to get them. And so what we're gonna do here, I'm gonna tell you kind of like all the top level services that we offer, and then I'm gonna tell you what we charge, and then I'm gonna go over, I think it's 4 to 5 closing techniques, like how you can close people, different methods. So security, like peace of mind, how we guarantee peace of mind. I will never, ever, I tell every single person this, we have 3 people right now that have houses on the market and they don't have a place to go and they're scared. Like it's pulling teeth to get them to list their house. So what we did is we told them, we will allow you to cancel your listing with us at any time, no questions asked, with 24-hour written notice. Number one, that lowers the bar for them so they don't feel like they're getting into a contract. They don't know where they're going to go. We don't force people to sell. We just say, if you want to sell your house, we want to be the one that helps you. And if you want to buy a house, we want to be the one to represent you. So we're going to hope that we earn your business. And then I will never let them be homeless. So that's important because all these people don't know where they're going to go and they probably don't want to rent and move twice. So we just let them know if we get an offer on their house that's acceptable to them, but they don't know where they're going, they're gonna sign that offer contingent on them finding another place. And if that buyer's not cool with it, they're not going to find any pressure from us to sign the offer and sell their house. And I'll tell you, everybody always finds a house to go to. I have never, and I've done this for years, I've never had a client that rejected or didn't sell their house because they didn't find a place to go to. I really think like it's like the reciprocal activator. I think that kind of applies here. They want to sell their house and they want to buy one. Maybe their criteria that they're looking for like isn't out there right now, but I tell you what, like they adjust their criteria without knowing it until they find a house that matches their criteria and they fall in love with it. So this has been really huge. Like just getting houses on the market and figuring it out later has been really, really big. But also lowering the bar and saying, you're not going to be hurt. You're not going to be homeless. Like, I'm not going to force you to sell your house. Don't worry about it. We just want to help you. So I think that's really important. Okay, flexible cancellation policy. Like I said, no pressure. This helps me get people, and this goes for my buyer consultation and my listing consultation. All of my clients can cancel their buyer rep or their seller rep at any time with just written notice. I usually just ask them to provide me feedback, like what we did right or wrong. That way we can not make the same mistakes for the next client, and people are really receptive to that. And I've never had a client, actually I've had one listing client cancel, but I tried to cancel anyways. But as far as buyer reps, we're new to this. So we've got like 5 or 6 right now that we're working with on this program, and none of them have even brought it up. So it really helps. I think the takeaway close, like, hey, you can walk away whenever you want. It kind of takes, like, if you lock someone into a contract, I feel like it makes them feel like bound and they want to get out of it. But if you just leave someone into an agreement that they know they can get out of it any time and it's written down and they've signed it, you signed it, they don't really want to get away from it. Like it's not scary to them anymore. This is the 3 big things that we have implemented since this NAR settlement. And truthfully, this is not like, I don't have every single one of my clients on this because we came up with this about 2 months ago. And we were going to wait until the NAR settlement went into effect. But I decided, why don't we just implement this right now so that we can figure out all the problems with it, or like what's working, what's not, what do people care about, what do they not, before we're required to do it. The 3 big things that we changed, and this is not, just so you know, this is not all from me. This is from, I've taken stuff from different people in the coaching company that I'm in right now, the students and the coaches, and I've put this whole thing together. So we offer 3 main components among many other things. We offer a love it or list it. If we sell them a house and they don't love it within 60 days of ownership, I will list the house with no listing agent commission, no transaction fee, no commission. They will not have an expense for Tim Duncan Real Estate. They may still pay a buyer's agent commission. We don't cover that, but we will list the house for them at no cost. So this is what I was talking to you guys about with adding more value and not really increasing your expenses. I think what this does to a client is it tells them we're not pushing houses. We're not just trying to get a sale. I don't want to list the house for free. So like if they like a house and we're encouraging them to buy it, like we must think that it's a good investment. Again, it's safety. It makes them feel good. Complimentary inspection and buyback program. So if a buyer goes under contract on a house and it does not pass the inspection contingency, which means there's a deal breaker in there for them that they're not willing to figure out. They ask for a credit to fix things and the seller won't give it to them. They just don't like the house after the inspection. Does not matter. I will reimburse them for their inspection. Again, I'm not paying for it up front. It's very rare I'm going to have to do that. But if it comes up, I will do it. And I'll do it as many times as it takes until they close on a house. But it provides them incredible value with very little cost for me. So it's a great risk versus reward scenario. And then the buyback program, the same thing, but on the appraisal. So if they go into contract on a house, they pass their inspection and the appraisal comes in low or the condition of the house isn't good enough to appraise and the seller won't fix it or they don't want to fix it with the seller, I will write a check to them for their appraisal cost. Again, I don't remember the last time a house didn't appraise for me. So it's very rare to happen, but if it happened, I would do it and I would still be happy about it because I just purchased a client, like they're going to stick with us. So those three things right there are huge value adds for the customer and very little cost for me. And they're not upfront costs, like they might happen just every once in a while. So I'm happy to answer any questions for you guys about that later. Okay, this is where I wanted to do a little bit of table work because I'd like to know any ideas that I'm not thinking of. But there's basically that I've come up with 5 ways that that you can be paid as a buyer's agent representing a buyer. Obviously, the seller can choose to pay at closing. The buyer can choose to pay at closing. You could have a mix of these two. We do that a lot right now. The buyer can pay you through the closing of their home that they're selling. So if the buyer is selling a home to buy, and they can't figure out commission there, or they don't have cash in their pocket and the seller won't pay, then I'd be like, no problem. Let's just tack this 3% on this purchase onto the sale of your home. So when that closes, I'm just going to be getting paid all the commissions through closing on that one. So that's another way. And then this is kind of in order of like how I would want it to be applied. Then there would be a promissory note where it's like if the buyer couldn't pay and there was no way for me to get reimbursed the $10,000 commission, but they could pay $5,000, then I'd say, okay, pay me the $5,000. We'll put you up with a 12-month or a 24-month, whatever promissory note that you sign and I sign, and you got to make payments to me on a monthly basis, just like car payment. That would be acceptable. And then the worst case scenario, if we chose to rep a client that couldn't get paid any other way, it would be leaning the house the buyer is buying. And the problem with that is you don't know when they're going to sell it. If they're going to be able to clear it, you're not getting interest on that money. So that's like the worst case scenario, but I didn't know if we had any other options. So Jonas, can we pause for a few minutes and do some table work and see what other people are able to come up with?
Absolutely.
If anybody else has any ideas?
And guys, you feel free to either put them in the chat screen or take your microphone off and yell them right out to Tim. I know he's making a list of other ideas.
Anybody else have ideas that I'm not thinking of?
Retainer fee,
So what's that?
upfront charge.
Okay. Have you ever done that?
Sure.
Wow. That's awesome. So when you do that, are you charging the full like amount? I guess like, are you taking a reduction because they're paying you up front, or is it the same fee?
No, it would be, generally speaking, I mean, this is something considering to elevate, but generally speaking, it would be just to get started, we have a retainer fee, kind of like an
Oh,
attorney.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Not necessarily reimbursable either. in addition to any commissions. I
Yeah,
think with the
okay.
uncertainties about how we're about to be getting paid, I've been exploring that idea personally, maybe expanding on that a little bit. And, I mean, there's all kinds of ideas floating around out there about fee for services and menu driven things, but I'll probably be sticking more along the lines of just, this is going to be an agreement that's going to pay X%. Let's get started. Here's a retainer fee. That's my thought.
So somebody asked if I could zoom out so they can see the full slide. I apologize. Jonas, can you see my whole slide here?
I can on my screen. I'm going to talk to Grace on the side and see
Oh, okay.
exactly what we were at. Tim, it said the last one here says it's under my understanding that you cannot put a lien on a home buyers for buyer's commissions. And she clarified that by saying at least not in the state of New Mexico.
Yeah, that's something to look into. I haven't ran into that or checked into it. So thank you for the heads up. I will check into that. And is it Sally? Is it? Oh, not Sally.
Yeah, Sally.
Sally
Grace was asking about the Zoom, and Sally was talking about the no liens.
Yes.
Is it? Do you know? Is it just because it's like commissions? Do you know why you can't do that?
I believe it is because of commissions. I know I've been on a NAR call with the attorney that's been working on the new forms to set up for NAR to prepare for July. And when that came up as a possibility, she said it would not be allowed. So I don't know the reason behind it. I don't know.
Or what entity is not allowing it.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any creative ways of getting paid?
This is Sally again. I put a note in the chat. So in conversation with that attorney, I had recommended a form that would allow to escrow for the buyer's agent commission, because when you look at it as it is today, title holds on to the monies for both brokers, and that might remedy that. So you escrow along with the earnest money, the buyer's broker commission, pending that they have it at the beginning of the transaction as soon as the deal goes under contract.
So are you saying similar to a
earnest money
commission demand?
It's similar to earnest money. So what happens is, as long as there's a form created for it, then you hand that to your buyer and they complete it as part of the contract, and they put their earnest money up and also the buyer's broker commission up to be held in escrow at title, until the deal closes. If it doesn't close, then there's, language in there that they get their money refunded back to them.
And Sean, you're saying if there is a second lien, then that would affect the loan to value.
Well, just like if we got a first mortgage and a second at the same time for closing, and they're putting 10% down, do we have a CLTV of 92, something like that, if it adds an additional amount onto it? So it's reasonable that if it's known and it's recorded at the time of closing, I would say it would look like a second being added. So it just something to double check, but that seems like how that would look.
Okay. Good to know.
Hopefully, eventually that will be a thing where the buyer is able to finance that piece of the transaction. That's probably something that is in our near future, in my opinion. And it won't without impacting or affecting the CLTV.
So you're saying, because right now they can finance it by getting it in the purchase price, but you're saying in addition to the purchase price, they'd be able to finance it.
Kind of like almost like a grant or I don't know, just like they're able to finance that, but it doesn't impact LTV.
James, I think that's you, and I 100% agree with you. They're gonna have to adjust.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let me get back to this. I don't figure out how to minimize. There we go. Cool. So closing techniques, there's real 5 basic closing techniques. This is not the priority that I like, but the 5 are triangle for trust, fear-based close, a takeaway close, a lower the bar close, and a value close. The triangle for trust is for referral partners. So this works really well when the client is a warm lead from your database or somebody that you know, or a VIP, or when you have mutual friends, acquaintances. It works like this. It's like, hey, Jonas, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you contacted us. We're really looking to get to help get you taken care of. Hey, I heard that you know Jimmy, and Jimmy gave you your name to call me. How do you know Jimmy?
He's been my coach for, gosh, 3 years, and he told me you were the best.
Right on. Well, I really appreciate that. So you've known him for 3 years. Do you trust Jimmy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I've known Jimmy for like 10 years. We were in this coaching company together, and we did a lot of business back and forth, and we've just known each other, and I work with this business a lot. So, hey, Jonas, do you think it's fair to say that if you trust Jimmy and I trust Jimmy, that you and I can trust each other?
Yes, sir.
All right. So that's a triangle for trust. You're using the referral partner and you're writing the lines of trust so that, your A equals B, then A equals C kind of thing. A value close. So this is what you're going to use most of the time when a buyer or seller is interviewing multiple agents. Just FYI, whenever I'm meeting with a buyer, I assume they're meeting with other people or a seller. And if they say they are, I'm like, great, you should meet other people. I'd like to get you signed up today. If you're not ready, no problem. Just call me back when you are. Because that confidence, I think, is like portrayed to other people, and they can like feel that. So the highlight, a unique feature. So point out unique aspects of the prop. Oh, okay. I didn't update that. Sorry, guys. So a value close would be like, I'm offering all of these things, and the listing, the buyer presentation would end up being a full value close by itself. But you're showing the buyer the amount of value that you're offering versus what you're charging. You're offering so much more in value than what you're charging. And then they're going to go over to the other guy that's going to do it for 2%, but he's not doing anything except for opening doors and writing contracts. And then it's up to them on which one they choose. But I'll tell you my experience, most people are, if they can afford it, they're going to choose the value rather than the discount, because what they truly want is great service. They just, at some point in their life, they were told that they need to ask for a discount. So that's usually why they do. Lower the bar close. So this is my favorite and probably my most common that I use with almost every single client. If somebody shows any kind of hesitation to working with us, I just lower the bar. So you've got to identify the concern with the client. So determine the issue the client has with signing your agreement right then and right there. Make sure you repeat the issue back to them. And that's very important, because sometimes, as you know, with communication, people say something and then you hear something completely different. So identifying that is really important. You need to offer a solution. So offer a solution that 100% removes the issue that they have with signing with you. Then ask, if I was to remove this or do this, would you sign the agreement? If I, will you? If I give you $100, will you give me an apple? Like it's like, make it that simple. Like, wait, you're gonna pay me $100 for an apple? Like, of course I would do that. And then close the sale. Make the changes to the agreement if you're willing to make those in front of them and get their signature. People don't want to go through the process of interviewing agents unless they have to. So it's up to you, and like it's ours to lose. So if you meet with somebody, and I always want to be the first person they meet with, and I tell them, I'll call the other, if you sign right now, yeah, we get it done. You think I'm offering the best, and nobody else is going to offer what I'm offering. I'll call the other realtors for you, and I'll cancel your appointment. You don't have to talk to them. Don't worry about it. So that works. So another example, I offer a free cancellation on all my listing and buyer agency agreements. I only ask for 72 hours and have a conversation with them so I can learn what happened to make sure that we do not repeat the issue for the next customer. One person is canceled, and it was a blessing, and that was on the listing side. Takeaway close. I use this a lot when I have a buyer that just won't make a decision, and we go over and over and over the same things. And by the way, this customer that canceled was this customer that just went over and over and over. A takeaway close is a lot like, hey, you know what? Maybe we're not the right fit for you. We've talked about this 6 times, or we've been over this before. It doesn't seem like you're comfortable with it. We're not going to move. We're not reducing our fee. So why don't I give you 3 names to other real estate agents that might make a good fit for you that I know that would accomplish what you want. I'll tell you what, when you step away, they instantly want what you have. And it does work. Now, sometimes it doesn't. So when you use this close, you've got to be willing to like lose the client or the deal. You've got to be to the point where you're just ready to be done, and just make a decision one way or another, because you're kind of making the decision for them. They've got to reach their hand out or raise their hand up and say, never mind, I'll sign up. So this works well for emotional buyers and buyers that are only focused on the cost of your service. I don't like to use this. I really only use it if I'm going to lose them. What you need to do is you need to identify the fear that the buyer has, whether it's property to condition, timing of the market, missing out on the one, paying too much, not negotiating enough, making sure she's choosing the right real estate agent. I haven't talked to 6 of them. You've got to tell a story. Emotional buyers, people that respond to fear-based, they get entrenched in stories. So you have to share an experience that you've had recently expressing the pain in another client. So this is called feel, felt, found. Then you need to make a guarantee. Tell the client how you guarantee that will not happen with them if they work with you. For example, what you should do differently. Now, hang on, let me see what she didn't use me yet. Okay, this is a perfect example. So I'm working with this gal right now, Lauren, and she's probably driving me and Lauren nuts. So working with a client that back in November, my past client called and said, my mother-in-law is going to buy a house. She's going to call you. She didn't call me. So like 2 weeks later, I reached out. I was like, hey, bud, I still haven't heard from her. You know what's going on? He goes, oh, she found somebody on like Zillow and had a good fit, decided to go with them. And I was like, okay, no problem, whatever. Well, a month ago, she calls me and she says, hey, we've missed out on 7 houses. I didn't call you and I should have. We missed out on 7 houses. And I don't think my realtor or my lender are really working with me. The house we missed out on today was the one I would have died for. I have to have it. So I said, I went into this process and I explained to her like, hey, I don't miss out on houses. If you work with me and you write an offer and you do what I say, you're going to get the house. You work with my lender, you work with me, you do what I say, you get the house. It's very simple. You're missing out on houses. You don't want to miss out on them again. You've already experienced that. And that's, now we're working together and she doesn't do what I say, so she misses out on houses, but she's still working with Lauren and I. So that's an example of fear-based. All right, so there was something in the beginning. Jonas, what was it I was going to go over at the end? It was the Alex Hormozy thing, wasn't it?
As soon as you get that list back up, I'll be able to tell you.
Here we go.
Risk
Risk
reversal.
reversal. This is insane. So this, guys, for 2 minutes, I'm going to talk to you about listings. This is crazy. So Alex Hormozy says in this book that like if somebody pays you something, the amount of time between when they pay you and when they get what they pay for is called I'm getting this wrong. It's not risk reversal. It's the time delay. It's time delay. Sorry, not risk reversal. We're talking about time delay. And that's not one that's on there. But time delay says how much time is in between when they paid for what they got, what they're getting, and they actually got it. That's called a time delay. And in structuring the perfect offer or $100 million offer, as Alex calls it, is reducing the time delay. So for example, like you could use this for buyers or sellers. I've really spent a lot of time doing this with sellers. So for example, we do a pre-listing inspection and a pre-listing appraisal and a bunch of photography and marketing on every listing that we put up. And I thought, man, the time delay for a seller client would be the time between when they sign the listing till they see a sign in the yard and their house is on Zillow. That is the time delay, in my opinion. So I was like, instead of it being 2 or 3 weeks to get them on the market, depending on when my inspector, my appraiser, my photographer, my marketer, all those guys are ready, how can I get them on the market in like 5 days, guaranteed? How can I go to a listing appointment and say, hey, if you work with me right now and you sign right now, you'll be on the market in 5 days, guaranteed, with all the work that we do. So I called my inspector and I said, hey, what would I have to do to like reserve Monday morning with you so that whether I used it or not, like you charged me, and like that spot was taken, you couldn't book it with anybody else. Did the same thing with my appraiser, my photographer, and it works out great. Like, I'll tell you, we probably use 3 out of 4 of them a month. So 1 week, I pay about $1,000 for all of those appointments that I don't end up using, but I signed 3 listings because of it. And those people are on the market faster. It also doesn't leave time for them to go interview other agents. Because they're coming to you and they want to buy or they want to sell. We've got to reduce the amount of time it takes for them to see the benefit of working with you. So that's what I was excited about, wanted to tell you. Yeah, so a couple examples for you guys. So just out of being realistic with you, we've done this program for about 2 weeks now. This week we've signed, on Sunday we did one, and Friday last week we did another one. On Friday last week was a cash buyer for 1.2 million, paying us 3% on the purchase price. She wants to go 1.2 to 2 million is what she's willing to pay, and she's totally fine. She didn't blink an eye. Like, I probably oversold and could have stopped earlier, and she said, this is what we offer, this is what we charge. And you know, she was cool with it, so she signed the buyer rep. On Friday last week, this guy met with a couple. They want to sell and buy. I know them because their kids and my kids are in sports together. So they signed the listing and the buyer on spot for 3%, and didn't have any problems with it. We've got 3 other people that we did earlier in the month that, so we're new to this still, but this is working for us. I'm always looking for ways to improve it. But I think if like people implemented some of this kind of stuff, they could probably increase their value or charge more. And so what I meant by you'll get paid more than you did before this NAR thing started or was announced, it was pretty common in our industry to offer a 2.5% buyer's agent commission. And so I wanted to come out on the other end using this as like leverage to make more money and not make less money. And so I just was like, how can I figure that out? Now, all these people were signing at 3%. It doesn't matter what the buyer's agent, the seller's agent is offering. We're going to make 3%. So we're making 0.5% more on every buyer that signs this, that reps it. We also have about 10 or 15 buyers that we've been working with since before we created this program. So I introduce it to them, and if they're interested in the benefits of it, like working in the middle of it, I'll sign them up on it. But I'm not requiring it. So those buyers, we're just getting paid whatever is advertised on the listing, but they're not getting the benefit of the inspection buyback, the appraisal buyback, the love it or list it, like those kind of things. So yeah, any questions? Be bold. Let's look at yeah, you can charge an hourly rate, Grace, that's true. Yep. Jonas, are people able to unmute themselves, do you know?
Yes, please. If you have any questions for Tim, please make sure you unmute yourself or put it right in the chat screen for me. Tim, are you seeing any fear out there from buyers? We're hearing a little bit of fear just because of the media. Have you guys seen any of that?
Fear around what? Just
fear around how to pay the agents and everything else.
Yeah, so we you know, I kind of talk about it as little as I can. Like when I talk about it, I'm like, guys, basically the NAR got sued because of like commission colluding, or because people didn't have an option to buy a house without a commission getting paid to somebody for the buyer rep. I was like, there's 2 things that change that really affect you. In August, we won't be able to look at a house unless you sign an agreement. So we're just going to sign an agreement today. You can cancel it at any time. So it just helps me be compliant and get my process in place. So when August comes, I'm just ready. If you're uncomfortable with that, I get it. We don't have to sign an agreement. I'd like to. It also, I outlines what we charge and what we offer. And then the second thing is commission. It's really simple. A seller is not allowed to advertise a commission in the MLS. And they usually ask a question like, oh, they can't pay. And I'm like, nope, they can pay. They are not allowed to advertise the commission in the MLS. It's the only change. Those are the only 2 changes that are going to affect you. So what might happen is you want to see 10 houses. I've got to call all 10 realtors and find out what commission they're offering, if any, and then I can let you know, and you might cross one or two of them off. But I think most people are going to pay a commission because I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I think it's pretty clear that if you offer a commission, you're going to get more showings, which means more offers, which means a higher price. So maybe there's a couple people that are going to try to sell their houses without offering a buyer's agent commission. I think they'll sell lower price and they'll learn their lesson. But no, I don't see a ton of fear about it. I mean, most people around here, I guess, just don't know a lot about it.
I see a couple questions in the chat screen and I'm having a tough time accessing it. Can you see it?
Yeah. Okay. So Lauren, how am I handling sellers who don't want to offer a buyer's agent commission? So let's say, Lauren, you were going to sell a house for $400,000. The buyer's agent commission on that 369 is 12 grand for 3%. I'd say, cool. You want 400, right? Would you sell for 350? No, of course not. So offer a buyer's agent commission. Like it doesn't, like the buyers that are going to buy your house, they're either paying it out of pocket or you're paying it. They can't afford the down payment, the closing costs, and the buyer's agent commission. They can hardly afford the down payment. You're already going to have to pay the closing costs. We're going to price your house so that that stuff is included. So you're not selling at 350 because the down payment. Okay. So let's say somebody's putting 10% down on a $400,000 house. They're putting 40 grand down. In order for them to make up that $12,000 commission on down payment, they've got to offer like $120,000 less on list price to keep the same amount of money in their pocket. So they can offer 280, a 3% commission to their agent, and they will have the same cash out of pocket roughly as offering 400,000 if the seller pays commission. So there you go. Overall, where does a majority of your business come from? For example, past clients and social media. That's a really good question, Oshana. Most of my business comes from a couple different spheres: past client referral, VIPs. By the way, your summit funding lender should be a VIP for you guys if you don't have one. Because they have referrals to give also, just believe it or not, they do. People call lenders first. And then like business partners. So I specifically target and attract business owners. I like people that own a business or they're like high up and they run a business. For me, my buyer persona, I think we just did all this data based on our past clients. They're like 35 to 45 years old. They make $200,000 to $300,000. They run a business and they have 2 kids and they're married. Like if I come into contact with that person, they're going to sign with me. That is my person. And if they run a business, I want to infiltrate their business and help every single person in their business buy or sell. It's much easier. So you become friend with the owner and then you bring a bunch of crumble cookies or nothing bunk cakes to their office once a month, walk around their office handing cookies, wearing your company shirt, asking people if they have any questions about the real estate market. Every once in a while, you hold a lunch and learn similar to this at their office and you bring pizza. All of a sudden, you've got a couple closings from them. And then it's really easy to go back and forth. Another one, Oshana, is estate and probate attorneys. We've done really, really, really well with estate and probate attorneys. And that is an interesting one. Attorneys' offices won't let you mingle around for privacy, I think it is. We just build relationships with the front desk person and usually the business owner or the top attorney at that office. And then from there, we can usually get a referral or two. And then once we do a good job, then he refers us to his other attorneys at his office. And then all of a sudden you get a couple ones. But just so you know, those are always pretty much always small deals. Very rarely are they really big ones. They're usually like 200. Like we closed one that was 150. We closed another one that was 290. And that was within the last couple of months. One of them we closed at $1 million, but that was a weird situation that will happen very often. But mainly my database. So my clients, past clients, current clients, past client referrals, VIPs, and friends. Friends are a big one. We get a lot of business from just people that we know. How do you see open houses going? Will every agent have to call the listing agent to see if it will be paid? Seller's intention. So I don't do open houses. I've done this for 10 years and up until COVID. So that would have been 19 or 20. That would have been for 6 years. I did 4 open houses a weekend. I'm done. COVID happened. It was the best thing ever. I never had to do another open house and I just don't do them. My team oftentimes asks about that. I'm just like, I'm not willing to sit in a house and listen to somebody tell me about how great their house is and how crappy my clients. I'm just not willing to. And open houses don't sell houses. They bring leads to agents. So if you need leads, do open houses. If you don't need leads, don't do open houses if you don't want to. But you should be average. You should be able to average a new client for every open house that you do. So when I was doing 4 a week, I would have 4 clients that didn't have a real estate agent that came into my open house and gave me contact information every weekend. So on Monday, I'd come back to the office with 4 new buyer or seller leads. It was just, that's how it averaged. I don't understand the last part of your question, which was, will every agent have to call the listing agent to see if it will be paid? You mean like, so Sean, will every agent have to call and see if the seller is paying a buyer's agent commission?
Yeah, that was the idea. And I think you mentioned that as well. Like before you look at houses, you need to find that out.
You know, I wouldn't. So that's each agent individually. I would just show the doggone house, get them excited about it, and figure out a way to get paid. If I'm constantly talking the clients out of looking at houses, they're probably going to find another agent that just wants to show them the house. Like, yeah, I could get myself in hot water and maybe I'm not going to get my fee. That's a risk I'm willing to take. I'm a pretty creative guy. I can usually figure out a way. If somebody likes a house and they're emotional about it, I'm probably going to figure out a way to get paid. Say a seller does not want to offer a buyer's agent commission. Would you as the listing agent still represent the buyer if they came directly to you for only what the seller is offering as the listing agent? Sure. Yeah, I won't turn down a client. I mean, if they're going to pay my commission and as a listing agent and follow my plan and pay me what I charge, absolutely, I'll represent them. I'm still going to tell them, like, there's not a lot of data because this is new, but like, what do you think? Like, if you went to buy a house, would you pay your own agent? Like, does that sound weird to you? So, hey, if you want to sell it at 400, that's great. We might get lucky. We very well might. So we can try it, but I just want to give you the right expectation. I wouldn't expect that you're going to get multiple offers and sell above list price. Like, you might sell lower and you might end up adding a commission in the after fact, and that's okay too. But I would still take the client because sometimes they just want to try it out. All right, Christina, can you do a quick synopsis again of the appraisal inspection buyback? Absolutely. So the reason I chose these is because the chances that they come into play are not likely. If they come into play, I'm happy to pay them back. So what you'll need to understand too is because I do a pre-listing inspection and a pre-listing appraisal on every house that we list, which is like, it's probably 50 or 60 houses a year. I went to my inspector that I love and my appraiser that I enjoy. And I said, hey, if I guarantee you 50 inspections on the listing side, not to mention my buyers, but if I guaranteed you 50 inspections, what price would you do them for? And he said, well, typical inspection is like $600. So how about I do them for $350? I said, okay, great. Let's do it. So then I went to my appraiser and she goes, well, a typical appraisal is like $1,200. How about I do it for $700? And I was like, phenomenal. Let's do it. So that's $1,000. When I do those listings, I charge 3.5% on the listing side plus a $3,000 transaction fee. And every single person signs the listing. Every single person signs listing. Happy to give you guys more information on that if you want. But on the buyer side, it's very simple. The buyer's they have to use my inspector because they will pay $600. But if I need to buy it back, I'm going to call my inspector and say, hey, refund them the $600, charge me $350. So it's very low risk for me. It's very high reward for the buyer. Makes them feel good. Like, people want to feel good. You know, they want someone that cares about them. I think that's like, damn, that guy cares about, like, dude, this is a smoke a deal. I'm not going to get hurt buying a house. Like, this guy's not going to push me into a shitty house because he's going to end up paying for it. So, and then the appraisal is the same thing. That one, I don't, because they get to choose, the lender chooses the appraisal. I'm just going to ask the lender for an invoice or a copy of like how much that appraisal was. I'm just going to write a check and hand it to them for that amount. So that's a little bit more risky. But again, like, I mean, raise your hand if you've had a house not closed because of appraisal in the last 12 months. Not very many people. So, like, am I willing to write a $1,200 check every 6 months? Absolutely. Ask seller to pay 3% or a percentage of the buyer's agent commission closing costs. That savings could pay buyer's agent commission. Ask seller to pay 3%. Oh, yes. Yeah, so so just for example, that buyer that I told you that signed the buyer's agent commission on Friday that wants to buy up to 2 million. We just wrote an offer for her yesterday for 1.2. The listing agent was offering 2.5% after we wrote the offer and submitted it. As I told her I would, I followed up with during the consult. I followed up with her and I said, hey, good news. This seller is willing to pay a 2.5% buyer's agent commission. That means you're only responsible for 0.5% of the purchase price. And she loved the message on her iPhone. She was not upset. She loved it. So that was cool. Can you go over the math example of the seller paying first? Okay, yes. So, okay, we're going to use 400,000. All right. So write down 400,000. Down payment is 10%. 10% of 400,000 is 40 grand. If they are paying a 3% buyer's agent commission, that's 12 grand. 10%, how much purchase price does it take to put down $12,000? I think it's $110,000. So every $110,000 that person buys, their down payment for that money is 12 grand. So in order for their cash out of pocket to be the same, they have to offer $110,000 less on the house. They literally have to offer $290,000 if the seller will not pay their buyer's agent commission, or they can offer 400 if they get the commission somewhere else. Whoever at, Sally, did that make sense? Oh, no, sorry, Grace, did that make sense?
Hang on, I'm checking with my realtors. Are we good?
No.
The question is, you're trying to convince the buyer to sell, or the seller to pay.
Are you trying to convince the seller
To
to?
pay?
Yeah, the purpose of that.
Yeah, I'm trying to show the seller that they're gonna sell, like, that I believe they're gonna sell for a lower price if they don't offer some form of compensation.
Okay,
Got it. Thank you.
Because if the buyer, like most buyers at like these prices, these 400 prices, they don't have 12 grand sitting around.
There it is. Okay.
Got it.
Got it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Tim, if that's it on the questions, I want to be absolutely